Welcome back. We're talking with Congressman Peter King, a Republican of New York, a key member of the House Homeland Security Committee, also the Intelligence Committee. I didn't realize there was a little bit of a feud going on, Congressman, between you and Senator Ted Cruz. You've been critical of him when he wanted to shut down the government. A lot of us remember that. He was on Aaron Burnett's show last night here on CNN, and he went after you after you had criticized him. Listen to what he said.
I don't know Mr. King. I've never met him. To be honest, I don't think I had ever heard of him until he started getting on television attacking me. He's welcome to express his opinions.
So basically he's dismissing you as somebody presumably not very relevant, but I don't know if you want to continue this conversation with Senator Cruz, but go ahead.
Sure, why not? I mean, this proves what happens. I mean, Ted Cruz has decided to be the center of his own universe, to live in his own world, for not to know who other members of Congress are, other members of the Senate. I mean, that's really his problem. Maybe if he had listened to me over the years, he'd be a little smarter. But I mean, again, not to be talking about myself, but I was, I think, the third highest Republican on national television shows last year. I'm on your show all the time. That shows he's not watching you, Wolf. So I think you should go after Ted Cruz for not watching you.
And maybe he doesn't know that, like him, and I think like him, at least you're thinking about running for the Republican presidential nomination, right?
Well, I'll be up in New Hampshire this Saturday. I'm speaking at some Republican events, and what happens, happens, but I certainly hope Ted Cruz doesn't get the nomination.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to hosting a debate maybe between you and Senator Ted Cruz. That could be lively, right?
Well, first he should find out who he's debating and find out what the issues are. Apparently he's living in his own world, and so that's what happens. But in any event, no, I look forward to that. So long as you're the moderator, Wolf, it has to go well.
It will be a responsible, fair debate. I can assure you that. Quickly on Dick Cheney, just a quick shot. Given the blunders he had going into Iraq back in 2003, he's now retired. Do you really think it's appropriate that he should be giving this president advice?
Well, Chris, the bottom line is that when President Bush and Vice President Cheney left office in 2008, Iraq had been secured. He handed over a very actually successful operation in Iraq to President Obama. So, yeah, there's some rough moments along the way and some rough times along the way. But the bottom line is in 2008, Iraq was secure. Al-Qaeda in Iraq had been defeated. There was virtually no violence, no attacks upon American troops, and Iraq was functioning. And then, in fact, as late as 2010, Joe Biden said Iraq was going to be a great success. And then the president, I believe, made a terrible mistake in pulling all the troops out because he couldn't get the status of forces agreement, which really was a failure of diplomacy, I would say, by the president and the Secretary of State.
But you got to admit, going into Iraq back in March of 2003 under false pretenses, that was a huge blunder to begin with.
Well, it wasn't false pretenses. Every intelligence agency in the world thought Iraq had
But all those intelligence reports were false.
But they were false because Saddam Hussein wanted people to believe that he had the weapons, and I still think Iraq was a much better place in 2008 with Saddam Hussein gone than it was in 2003 with him still there and with the capacity to produce chemical and biological weapons at almost overnight if he had to.
Quickly, because we got to wrap it up. Sure. You voted to authorize the war back at the end of 2002. Was that a mistake?
No, absolutely not. I think Iraq and the Middle East and the world was a much safer place in 2008 after Saddam Hussein had been removed and a legitimate government was installed, and it was President Obama who has allowed that to collapse.
Peter King, member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Let's get ready for a debate.